I can hear noise. Hi, Karishma. How are you?
I'm very well. It's wonderful to be here, Ushaji.
I am excited to have this conversation together today. Yeah, so I want to start off with a bit of introduction. I'll say a little bit about myself and share about you as well. I am currently a high school teacher. I teach math and computer science, and my undergrad was in electronics engineering, and I have a master's in computer science. I worked in the software development field for 18 years in technical and management roles. I then homeschooled my daughter for several years through most of her middle and high school, actually. And then I worked with a nonprofit. I taught parenting classes. My daughter is now doing grad studies in mathematics. I was introduced to the art of living practices in 2012, and I subsequently became an art of living teacher. And I've been very grateful for the practice. I would now like to take a moment to introduce Karishma to our audience. So Karishma is currently the director of product management for Facebook Marketplace at Meta, where she's been working for nearly 2 years. She graduated from the Wharton School with an MBA. She has extensive experience with product management, and she's worked with many companies, including eBay, Trinet, and Intuit. She is a champion for women in business and was the global president for women at eBay for a year and a half. Karishma and her husband have an 8 year old daughter. She is an art of living teacher and has been teaching the Sky Breath meditation course for many years. You'll hear more about all this from her directly in a moment. She has extensive experience working as an organizer for large courses when Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar came over to the Bay Area, and she brought her full scale of her corporate experience to bear in the process of organizing those courses. She is passionate about self care, about meditation, about parenting, and leadership. So wonderful to have you here, Karishma.
It's wonderful to be here, Ushaji.
Could you tell us when and how you started your journey with meditation?
I started meditating when I was a teenager. So often, as teenagers do, you know, it was a difficult time, and many teenagers experience some form of anxiety and stress. And, there's so much happening in life at that time. And I also went through my own period of anxiety, which showed up as chronic migraines for me at that time. And the doctors did not have any solution. They would give me all these experiments to try. Why don't you try going to sleep at 9 o'clock, waking up at 6, and see if that works? Why don't you have so many glasses of water and see if that works? Why don't you try to eliminate certain food out of your diet and see if that works? So I realized that I had to do something, and all these experiments, while, you know, they kept me busy, they didn't really solve my problem. And at that time, I was introduced to meditation. One of my closest friends, Ruchika, her mom, was is a meditation teacher, and she introduced me to it, and that's how I started. So, through my teenage years and my 20s, where most of my friends were doing things that they were not supposed to do, I was binge meditating.
You were binge meditating while others were binge doing other things that didn't necessarily serve them very well, I guess. That's wonderful that it's really a blessing to have started meditation at such a young age. You're one of the lucky ones. Not everyone gets to start that early. So it's wonderful that you started that way. You mentioned the other day when we spoke that there are three words that guide you every day: passion, compassion, and dispassion, and how that connects with leadership. What about passion is so important, and how does that apply with leadership in your life?
You
Do you
know,
have a
for,
story to share, perhaps? Maybe, yeah.
yeah, first I want to say, like, when I first heard Gurudev Shri Ravi Shankar share this, that we should live our life with passion, compassion, and dispassion, I was blown away because I thought, wow, if I can just do this one thing and bring these three qualities in my life, it would be a huge step change in how I show up every single moment. I think passion actually comes naturally to most of us in some area or the other, right? And I'm naturally a very passionate person. And especially, like, when we think about folks who work in the valley, who are working in all these tech jobs, like, passion is not missing. Our passion shows up in what we call ambition. It's just another form of it, right? But to me, it's really like just showing up for whatever challenge or whatever opportunity I have in front of me, giving it my best, um, looking at it in a way of like, what can this moment, what can this project, what can this purpose, what can this person, teach me, and just approaching life in an open mind. To me, that is passion, right? Like, just seeing, okay, we have this opportunity in front of us, let's see what we can make of it, let's see what comes of it. I That's passion for me. It's very simple in a way.
Yeah, giving it your 100%, basically, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And then it's occurring to me that when you give it your 100% and when you do something with passion, it can be very inspiring for others. So it's in some ways it's leadership by example also, isn't it?
I think it's leadership by exam. It's more than that. It's like
More than
infectious
that.
leadership, actually.
Infectious. Yeah, right.
Right.
Inspirational leadership, where
Yeah.
your passion then inspires others to get into whatever they're doing with passion.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
almost like it's infectious, when people see that um there's momentum in what you're doing, there is some level of commitment, there's some level of participation from you, then they feel invested in participating with you, in being on your team, um in kind of being on that journey with you. So
Yeah. Do you
yeah.
have a specific example that comes to mind, perhaps in your workplace or maybe in your personal life where passion really made a difference to perhaps what you were doing for the project you were working on and perhaps inspiring others to be leaders as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking there's, in a way, it's everything I do, but I'm trying to find a specific example. I would say I'll just pick up something that's very top of mind, like, some of the projects that I'm working on right now at work are really challenging projects, as and especially for those of us who work in the tech industry, we know that this is a challenging time for the industry, and there is a lot of focus on teams producing results and outcomes. And in that space, it's very easy for one to think, oh, that the ask, or what is being asked of us, is very daunting, and it's impossible, or it's not likely to, we won't be successful, right? Like, that's one way of thinking. The other way of thinking is, yes, it is difficult, but I'm going to show up with an open mind and give it my best. And I think when one does that, it's just, I know people around me notice it. I know that my peers, my teams notice it. And I know that they will tell me when they meet with me that, um, we notice that you're committed to this. We notice that you are giving, you're pushing and you're trying your best. And in a way, it gives them confidence that they're on the right team.
Hmm.
So
Beautiful.
I don't know if I gave you the example you're looking for.
Yeah, it is really helpful when when you can see that you're having an impact. It gives you direct feedback when other people tell you that, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, the words Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, and Upeksha come up in the context of how one might interact with people. Karuna is one of the four that is mentioned, which means compassion, is
Mhm.
also one of your guiding principles, right? Can you share how that shows up in your life? And maybe if you have a story to share it.
Yeah, I think, for me, compassion shows up in two ways. One is compassion towards myself, and second is compassion towards those around me. I think it's very easy for us to think about compassion for those around us. It's natural. That's what comes to our mind when we think about the word compassion. Um, while that is important, and what does compassion mean? Like, how does it show up even for others, right? It's not always like, sometimes it's tough love, in the sense, sometimes you have to deliver a tough message if that's good for the person to hear. It's like parenting, right? I think parenting is like all about compassion. Like, you have to deliver the tough message, you have to do the punishment, you have to hold them accountable, but you have to do all of it in a way, with the intent that you're doing it for the child
Out
or
of
for the
love.
person, like
Yeah.
for them to be a better version of themselves, and with a lot of care. So that's how compassion for others shows up in my life. Compassion for myself, I think this has been a lesson I've learned, is that it's okay. It's okay if I'm not perfect. It's okay if I didn't, if my 100%, if showing up 100% one day feels different than showing up 100% another day. It's just giving myself room to be. um yeah, that's and frankly, this has been like a harder lesson for me to learn than compassion for others. It's compassion for myself.
Yeah, we're always much, much tougher on our, much more self-critical, right, than we are critical of others.
Yeah.
Sometimes we are our worst critics and we are our worst enemies because our mind is so good at making all these negative judgments about ourselves.
Yeah. So my favorite thing to do is when I'm like judging myself is it's okay. Like, oh my God, I messed up the presentation. It's okay. Like, oh my God, I didn't pack my daughter's lunch the way she wanted it. It's like it's okay. Like that's my favorite thing to say to myself.
Yeah. One of the things I used to tell people as well was, be a friend to yourself. But this is, adding compassion to yourself. Be a friend to yourself. Give yourself a hug. Be kind to yourself. It's an important thing that we all need to do, because otherwise we are just going to go through life feeling miserable. It starts with ourselves, doesn't it? Always.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and
Um,
the other thing I want to say about compassion is I think especially at work, it's very easy to become um 100% goal focused and forget that we are actually working with other human beings. And so that's the kind of aspect of compassion at work, which is always remembering that we're working with human beings, right? Like we might have different roles, responsibilities. One person reports to another. One person is a peer, might have a bigger role, might have a smaller role. But having that fundamental respect and care for the people whom we spend a lot of time with every day. And of course, it looks different than compassion for your family members. You don't want to mix the two. But just showing up like in a human, thoughtful, caring way for other people.
yeah, so that's so true. Even in the world of, so I'm a high school teacher, and even in my world, uh, sometimes we hear the word case. A student is a case, especially if they're in special education or something. So then there's a case manager. So we have to, even though those words are necessary from a legal point of view, because there's a lot of documentation that goes with that, one has to think of them as not cases but human beings. Everybody is not, there's nobody who's just a case. Every time I hear that word, it almost makes me cringe. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying, that every human being needs to be taken care of with compassion. um, the other word that guides your daily life is dispassion. Gurudev has talked about four pillars of knowledge: viveka, vairagya, shatshampati, and mumukshatva. The second one of those is vairagya, and the best translation for that is dispassion in English. Can you share what dispassion means to you and how it shows up in your life?
Oh my God, has this been a lifelong journey to learn this passion? And I'm still learning. um, what does this passion mean? In its simplest form, it means the ability to have, not the ability, but like the gift to have a peaceful sleep, right? How do I know that I am not living with this passion if I'm not able to fall asleep properly? And then if my sleep is not rested? Because if when I hit the bed, if my mind is still chewing on or passionate about everything that happened during the day, I know that in that moment, in that day, I have not been able to practice dispassion. So that is my test. And that is a test that I have borrowed from Gurudev. Like I've heard him say that, to be able to fall asleep, one has to have some dispassion towards whatever happened in the day. So that's my test. How does it show up? I think it shows up in many ways, in small ways, in big ways. my daughter is now 8, and it's a very formative age where one sort of becomes more aware of things like values and and subtle behaviors, that one has. So I'm trying to, like, um, imbibe in her and bring awareness to all these values that I think, I would like my child to have. And it's an interesting process because children have their own mind, their own personality, they have their own point of view, and you can share what believe in, or what you think is right. But then you have to really, like, let go. Like, in a way, you have to be dispassionate. Like, you have to give it to them and see what they make of it. I mean, it's my responsibility to give it to her. So whether that is, you know healthy food, or teaching her like the right values, or even like our culture, right? Like, so that's my responsibility. That's kind of the passion part. But at some point I have to say, okay, she's going to make it her own, in some form or format, and then that is dispassion. And I think that is probably like where I have to, like, tap into my dispassion on a daily basis. um yeah.
Letting go, of the result, and just all you have control over is what you can do, and what she does, or what anybody else you're interacting with, how they respond to it is their business, and we just move through it and let go. We can't take ownership of what they do.
Yeah.
And Gurudev says breathing in is passion and breathing out is dispassion. I love that analogy as well.
Yeah.
So tell me, Karishma, how has meditation helped you use or make these values part of your daily life?
Usha ji, before we had this chat, I was thinking about this. I was like, yeah, all of this, all of these nuggets of gold that Gurudev gives us to live our life by. At one level, they appear to be so simple, but at another level, when you actually look into implementing them in your life, it can seem really daunting and very hard, right? And I think meditation is the link that makes it possible. Because through meditation, at least for me, I have observed that I have a much higher self awareness. I have a much higher self awareness of my thoughts, of my behaviors, of my actions, how my actions affect the environment and the people around me. Because of this heightened self awareness, I have more of an ability to make an active choice about what I engage in, what I not engage in, more as compared to, previously for me. So I'm comparing myself to myself. And what that means is, like, when my mind at 9:30 in the night is still chewing on the project or the discussion that happened at work at 4 p.m., then, my mind, I have a little bit more discipline to say, okay, I'm going to put it away, we're going to sleep, and then tomorrow morning we'll get passionate about this again and we'll pick it up. So that is the
There's
link.
that dispassion kicking in, right? Going to sleep, letting
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. So that's the link. The meditation really has helped me build self awareness towards my own behaviors and patterns and actions in a way.
Yeah. So, May 7th is coming up. Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar is going to be in town. Are you excited about that?
Yes, it's also my birthday.
Oh my goodness, what a coincidence. You're going to see him on your birthday. So that's lovely. So I bet you already booked your tickets.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you tell us about this event? Tell our audience about it so that, they're also inspired to join. I've booked my ticket also, by the way.
Yeah, so May 7th, Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, he will be leading a wisdom series at the San Jose Convention Center. And the topic is, tapping into your sixth sense. So, what is the sixth sense? We all know what the five senses are. The sixth sense is the sense of intuition, or what we call our gut feeling. We all have gut feelings, but being able to really listen to them, have confidence in that gut feeling, and take action on it. That is what Gurudev's session is about. So it's a two-part session, 11 to 1 in the morning and 3 to 5. Am I saying the times correctly, Ushaji? I could be.
I'm not sure about the right time. We'll make sure we'll post it on the
Yeah.
on our
So
broadcast. Yeah.
two sessions on the 7th of May, and I would highly recommend it. Whether one has a long-standing meditation practice, whether one is new to meditation, Gurudev's knowledge is very practical and very simple, and I describe it as it helps me show up as a best version of myself with my family, with my friends, and at work. And it can unlock the same for you. So I would recommend everybody to be there and to experience it firsthand.
Yeah, and I can just confirm the time. It is 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. So 2 hour sessions with a break in between for lunch and just chatting with friends. So I am so happy that we had this chance to talk, Karishma. I hope our viewers also enjoyed our conversation. And at this point, I'm looking forward to connecting outside of this as well. So, bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you, Shaji. Likewise, it was wonderful to chat with you.